Andrew Klavan is a man of many talents. He's a best-selling author. He's an Edgar Award winner and screenwriter. He's also a successful podcast host and essayist at the Daily Wire. He's out with an exciting new thriller novel called A Woman Underground. Would you please welcome, from the Daily Wire, Andrew Klavan. If there ever was a Renaissance man, Andrew, I think you might be that guy. I mean, screenwriter, you've done many films that have been produced that ended up being done by Clint Eastwood, Michael Douglas. I mean, some pretty big films that you did the screenplay for.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate, and I was successful in Hollywood right up until the minute I opened my mouth on politics. And then the phone stopped ringing instantaneously.
So that really happened to you?
It really did. It was very quick and disturbing, but I wouldn't do it any other way. I mean, I felt that we reached a point where they were making movie after movie attacking the wars on terror and showing Americans as the bad guys.
Yeah.
And I don't mind what your opinion is. I disagreed with that, but you don't make propaganda for the enemy while the soldiers are in harm's way.
What a novel idea. Well, God bless you for having the guts to do that, because a lot of people would just keep their mouths shut and keep getting the checks.
Yeah, no, I just thought they're actually human beings, my guys, my people being killed, losing a couple of jobs in Hollywood, or all the jobs in Hollywood, didn't mean very much at all, really.
But even despite that, you've found other ways to be influential, obviously through the writing of a series of novels for which you've been winning awards. Yeah. This latest one is called A Woman Underground. There are some women I think probably should be underground, but that's a whole nother story. We won't go there tonight because this one is fiction.
This is fiction, yeah.
Okay. So this is not the historical account of any particular woman who is or should be. It's a thriller, and everyone who's talked about it says it's just one of those riveting stories. How do you come up with stories? Because I think sometimes it would be much harder to write fiction than it is to write the story that is, a real life story.
Well, in some ways it is, because you have to figure out how everything happens and how it all unfolds. But usually it starts with a question of what would happen if?
Yeah.
What would happen if in this book, the love of your life came back into your life and you realized she was in trouble and you had to get to her before somebody else, a bad guy, did. What would happen if you walked into your baby's room and the baby was gone? All these questions kind of pop into your head, and you sort of think about that and you think, yeah, that's a good story.
If you were writing a story about this election, there are parts of it, depending on how it turns out, I hope it is fiction, but there could be some interesting aspects of even how politics plays out before our eyes. Put your real life hat on, because I know you do the podcast now and you're dealing with very current issues. What are the biggest stories that a lot of Americans don't even understand about the impact of this election and where it takes us?
Well, the biggest story of all is the corruption of our news media. That's the biggest story because it sets the field for everything else. We're not seeing a candidate when we see Kamala Harris. We're seeing a creation of basically the entertainment industry, if you include the news media in that. And that's all a function of the creation of the internet, which has let more people speak and more voices come out, and they want to make that stop. And so they are basically selling us this kind of plastic image of a candidate. And so that is one thing. But the other thing is what you just said, is the way this government works. We now have, they call it, the deep government, the deep state, or anything like that. But we have a bureaucracy that in Donald Trump's term was actually working against the president of the United States.
Yeah.
You talk to people who are in the Trump administration, and they'll tell you they had to fight to get what the president wanted done. So here's the guy that we elected and the people he appointed fighting people who have never been elected to anything.
To anything,
right,
yeah.
And are marshaled against him. And so what we're looking for, I think, is to take the government back. We're looking to take the government back for the people, which it really has not been, it hasn't been in our hands for quite some time. It's very, very disturbing to somebody who I love this country so much. I mean, I lived out of this country for a while. I lived in England, a lovely place to live. It's nothing like this. When they tell you this country is racist, this is the least racist country on earth.
Yeah.
When they tell you, that we don't have freedoms, we have these wonderful freedoms. This is the first time in my life that I've ever seen a government conspiring to silence people. Ordinary people, you have an opinion, they'll come in. If you protest abortion, they'll raid your house in the middle of the night. And so this is a really serious business because Donald Trump, he has his flaws like all of us, but he actually believes in the country as it stands. And I don't think we're any longer dealing with right and left. I think we're dealing with the founding of America and against the founding of America.
I think that's a great way to put it. What we just discussed before we went to the break was what's happening in a culture of the government. Some call it the uniparty, the deep state, but it's all about the bureaucracy. People whose attitude is, I was here before you came, I'll be here when you leave, and they honestly believe that they are not answerable to the people. Andrew, here's what maybe is the most disturbing thing of all. I hear people say, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. But Donald Trump believes that if the people elect someone, it is the elected official in whom that power has been given. He delegates it, and that's what happens. And if you don't like it, 4 years later, you can change it. But you don't have a government, a free government, if people within the bowels of the federal bureaucracy say, you know what, we don't like what the president proposes. We're going to do it our way. That is the enemy of democracy.
Absolutely true. And it's amazing, it's laughable almost. They can't understand why the people would turn to a guy like Donald Trump, who's so blunt and bluff and says tough things and all these things. For 50 to 60 years, the people of this country have been told by the elites that their religion stinks, their country stinks, they're racist, they're anti-women, they're homophobic, all these things. And finally, I think it was incredibly civilized of the American people to strike back with Donald Trump instead of showing up with pitchforks and torches outside their offices. And so this is a genuine, quiet, peaceful revolution of people who have been told so long that the things that they hold dear are no good. And the thing about it is, it's just like when we watched the debate between Kamala Harris and Trump, the media kept correcting Trump, and they were wrong, and he was right. The people are right. The people are right about this country. It was one of the only truly amazing revolutionary political ideas in history. They keep calling themselves progressives, but the things that they're doing have been done since Pharaoh. The things that we're doing, this idea that the people rule and that we have this kind of ordered government, it's not quite a democracy, but it's kind of has a democratic republic. That idea is a brilliant idea, and it worked so well until they started messing with it. And it can work well again, no question.
And Andrew, the way they've messed with it is what disturbs me. They deny the reality of our very documents that are the basis of our law. There is no free speech. We can tell you when you have to shut up. If you disagree with us, we shut you down, and we even tell the social media companies what they can publish and what they can't. That, to me, is as frightening as anything that's happening in our government, a government that thinks that it has that power to basically say, you, the people, work for us. And I'm thinking, gee, when I read the Constitution, every one of the Bill of Rights, all of them, tell the government what it can't do. It never tells the people what they can't do.
I've worked my whole life in the arts. I've been in the arts my whole life. And the arts and culture affect people's minds and consciousness. And they have been using the arts and blacklisting people and keeping people like me out of the arts in order to sort of change people's minds without even knowing that their minds are changed. The way the culture works is it's like you're standing on the beach and the ocean comes in and takes the sand out from underneath. So we can win every election we want, but we keep losing the culture. We keep losing the argument because of the culture. And so that's one of the reasons I work, you say it like I'm a Renaissance man, is because I'll do anything to get that culture changed. These people seriously believe that America was a mistake. And if you don't believe me, you should look at Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate. He is now rejiggering the educational system in Minnesota. And the guy he has doing that believes that America should be overthrown. America should be deconstructed and overthrown. That's the education he wants to bring into his state as the governor. These guys really believe that.
Yeah.
And they don't believe it for logic. They believe it because it's in the movies, it's in the books they read, it's in the culture all around them. So they just know it's true without thinking it's true. And I just think we have to change that. We have to start saying out loud, as bluntly as we can, you know, this is our country, not yours. And if you don't like it, go elsewhere.
I hope we say it loud and clear when it comes to Election Day. If you'd like a link to Andrew's podcast or to purchase his latest book, this one right here, A Woman Underground, head over to Huckabee.tv. We have a link to his guest page, and we would love to have Andrew back and talk some more.